Patrick speaking. I guess we'll wait one more minute. Patrick speaking. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to have you all here and to have our guests from Microsoft. Let me introduce myself. My name is Patrick Boudreau. I'm director here of I'm a director of translation services here at Gallaudet University. We are partnering with Microsoft Research, and they helped make this event possible to help us learn about artificial intelligence and American Sign Language and how these two may be connected. This is the third presentation in the series. And today we'll be talking about inclusive design and how it improves technology, a very vital topic to discuss, basically regarding the users and experiences. After the presentation, we will be talking about the ASL AI competition that's happening here. I'll provide a little bit more information about that. I would now like to introduce Melissa Mauskun, who will be moderating our event today. Please take it away, Melissa. Melissa saying, thank you, Patrick. I'm excited to have our presentation today and our two speakers, Swetha and Sophie. If you don't mind turning on your cameras for a moment so we can get a look at you and you can wave. There's Sophie, Swetha, if you don't mind turning on your camera for a moment so you can say hello. Thank you, awesome. And if you don't mind turning off your cameras again, please, while I do quick introductions. Thank you.
Hello, thank you.
I'm now going to introduce you, Swetha, and also Sophie. And they'll be doing presentations individually, and after that, we'll have enough time for a quick Q&A session. You can use the chat function for typing in your questions. Now, Swetha is a senior program manager at Microsoft translation team. She focuses on building applications at Microsoft. She's very involved in pushing projects to make sure that they include persons with disabilities and recognize that. And I know that I know Swetha has been experiencing basically her life has been a blur, going all over the world and doing all sorts of interesting adventures and doing all sorts of interesting things. And she's doing numerous awards, things like that. So we're very excited to have Swetha here to do a quick presentation. And I know she's done presentations all over. And Sophie is a Gallaudet graduate of 2016 and information technology. And then she went to the University of Washington and has completed her master's degree in computer science and engineering. She's had numerous internships at various companies. At Microsoft, for instance, she's had 5 internships there. And now she's a full-time software engineer in the Azure team at Microsoft. So we're very excited to have them both here to talk about inclusive design and how that improves technology and the user's end experience. and how taking that into account helps improve technology, the process of designing it, and the user's experience. And so, Swetha, if you would like to go ahead. And you could have the interpreter up as well.
Hello everyone, I am Tweta and it's so exciting to meet you all virtually.
Okay.
Before I talk about
Swetha, can you hold one moment, please?
Has made technology better, I would
Swetha,
like
if you don't mind, Swetha, just one moment, please. We were waiting for the interpreter to come on, and the interpreter. So Swetha, it took a moment for the interpreter to come up. So if you don't mind starting again, we very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Hello everyone, it's so exciting to meet you all virtually. I am Tweta and before I talk about how inclusive design has made technology better, I would like to first walk through some facts. We all know that there are over 7.6 billion people in this world. But did you know there are over 1 billion people with some form of disability? When we talk about disability, and according to World Health Organization, disability is not a personal health condition, but rather a set of mismatched human interactions. The lack of software or infrastructure is what makes a person disabled. So, what does it mean? It means that everyone should be able to access information or product or service easily. This is why we need inclusive design. Now, what is inclusive design? As you all know that captioning or subtitles have been designed for the deaf and hard of hearing community. This facility now could be useful for anyone who wants to hear the commentary at a very noisy football match or even at a crowded airport. Recent studies have shown that captioning is very helpful in teaching children how to read. This is what inclusive design is all about. We design for a specific population and extend that solution to the rest of the population. Now, I'm going to talk about how inclusive design has made technology better for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. In this pandemic time, where virtual meetings are rampant, Microsoft Teams is working very hard to make meetings accessible with live captioning and background blur. So, with live captioning, participants can follow any meeting easily and can be productive as their peers. I use live captioning a lot, and trust me, it has helped me when I forget to include or invite my interpreter to the meeting. About background blur, let me tell you all a story. I often make video calls back to my parents in India because the network quality is very low. I could not read them properly. By the way, I have profound hearing loss. I used to tell them, hey, turn off your lights on the background and whatnot. I got so frustrated and I thought, why don't I build something that will allow me to see the page properly without any distraction? So that was when I came up with this idea of background blur. This feature was designed with accessibility in mind, but now it has proved to be very useful from a privacy point of view. It's a very inclusive design, you can even hide your confidential information on your whiteboard, or you can use it to hide your messy background or bedroom. It has proved to be an inclusive design benefiting millions of people on this planet. Let's say you are going out in this pandemic time with your mask on and you want to communicate with someone, but you cannot for reason that you cannot lip read or your native language is not English. Microsoft Translator helps in breaking communication and language barriers at home, at work, or anywhere you need it. It is available as an app on Android, iOS, as well as on the browser. With this app, you can have either one-on-one conversation or even a group conversation with 100 people, getting the transcription in their own language on their own device. Now, let us watch the video.
I'll be showing how to demonstrate a multilingual conversation using the Microsoft Translator app, which is free on iPhone or Android. First, as an educator, I'm on the left-hand phone. I'm going to click the Translator app here to launch Translator. The right-hand phone shows the parent and will represent the multilingual conversation I'll be having. So you'll want to click the button with the two little people on the right here, and I just clicked that. Now, first thing I'm going to do is click the Start button. So to start this conversation as an educator, it has my name. My name is Mike, and I'm going to be speaking English, and I click Enter. And it's going to generate this little conversation code, a 5-digit code that I can send to the parent. I can also have a QR code. So I'm going to send in mail or tell that parent that I'm going to be joining the conversation and click Enter. Now we're going to switch to the right phone, which is the parent. So the parent here is going to be Amanda, and she's going to also launch Translator and click the little 2-person button right there. Now, Amanda got this 5-digit code from me, the teacher, so she's going to be typing in PJARQ, and that is the 5-digit code, and she's going to click Join to join in this session. And there's her name, Amanda, and Amanda speaks Chinese, so she's going to click Enter. Now, both of us are in this conversation remotely, so I'm going to start talking as the educator, and I'll click the microphone button to start talking. Hi, Amanda. Thank you for joining this parent-teacher conference about your daughter.
谢谢，我很高兴今天能来参加。
Your daughter has been doing a really good job doing remote learning, and we're glad to be working with her.
非常感谢，我们也非常幸运有这么好的老师。
So it's just that easy to have a multilingual parent-teacher conference using the free Translator app.
So Microsoft is often looking for ways to make the effort out of your community to cope with remote learning or meeting in this pandemic time. I hope you all have heard about OneNote. Right now, OneNote provides the capability to provide translated captions. So, students can successfully follow their lecturers in a remote setting. Let's look at the video.
I'll be showing the brand new OneNote Live Captions feature. This feature fuses OneNote together with Microsoft Translator and live captions to allow the most inclusive note-taking experience I've ever seen. This is rolling out right now into private beta and will be showing up later in 2020 in a much more broad rollout. So we'll start out as the educator. The educator has Microsoft Translator, which is free. It's in the web, it's on iPhone, it's on Android. It's a free app, and it will translate and caption in real time in over 67 languages. So the scenario is the educator is going to kick off a translator session and hit start and enter. And we've got a video. You can get all the details on how translator is used, but assume I'm going to start a session as an educator. And it's going to create a join code you can see here. This join code will be shared with the students in the class. And this could be remote teaching. This could be in a lecture hall. It can be in various ways. All you need is that 5-digit join code. Now imagine that the educator has shared the join code with the student who's using OneNote. And now we're going to switch into OneNote and see exactly how this works. Here I am in OneNote for the web, and I'm going to go to the View tab. And I'm the student in this case. So the student is in here, and way over on the right here, there's a live captions button, and I'll click that. The live captions pane opens. Now as the student, I'm going to paste that join code my educator gave me and join the session. And I'm going to choose a captions language. You'll see there are almost 70 languages in here, and I'm going to choose English to start and click join. But I could choose a different language and caption in that language. Now, what you're seeing on the right are captions coming through in real time. So if I'm a student, I can get these captions right here, and I can take notes at the same time. So over here in OneNote, I can still say I am taking notes. Now, let's say the educator was saying something and I was like, wait, I forgot what they were saying. That was something important. In the upper right, I'll click pause. I can pause those captions in real time. So now I can go up here and maybe I want to highlight something. So I'm going to turn on the yellow highlighter and I'm going to go and I'm going to highlight something. That's yellow. That's important. Oh, this part is important here. You maybe want to go and change the colors to make a different color. And I can even make the text bigger. So if I drop down this right here, I can make the text a little bigger so I can see it. Now the educator's continuing to talk while I pause these captions. And a lot of students would worry that they're going to miss all that information. Well, if I hit resume, what you can see is everything that the professor or the educator was saying is captured right here. So that is really inclusive. Maybe that's something where there's too much information coming and I couldn't absorb it all. Now, the other nice thing is that everything that I was saying is automatically captured. Look over here on the left. You're going to see a transcripts section that is automatically created. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the live captions pane. And when I switch over to transcripts, you'll see everything that was being talked about was captured automatically and saved in my OneNote, the entire transcript. So you can see on the transcripts section, this page was automatically created and it has the join code, the transcript, the date. It even captures all the highlights that I made when it was over there in the captions pane. So all transcripts are automatically saved. And we know from research that having transcripts and live interactive captions helps improve student outcomes.
We have seen examples of how inclusive design has made technology better. Therefore, with inclusive design in mind, we can design for 1 and 7 billion people. Thank you very much. I am going to let Sophie talk now.
Thank you so much, Swetha, for your presentation. Wow, that was really phenomenal. I do have some questions, but I'll make sure to hold them until the end. I know we have some thoughts that we'll have to hold on to. Now, if we could go to Sophie, I'll go ahead and bring up your screen and make sure we're all ready to go. Sophie, whenever you're ready. It looks like we're having some issues. Let's see if we can sort out. One moment. While we're waiting for Sophie to come back online, I do have some questions for Swetha. I'm curious with OneNote, how accurate are those translations? Do we see ourselves being close to that 100%, or where are we at as far as the accuracy? Swetha, can you pull up your video? We can go ahead and do a brief Q&A with Swetha. I know we're here waiting for Sophie. Seems she's having some technical issues with Zoom. So let's go ahead and have a quick Q&A session with you about your presentation. And then once Sophie's back online, we can transition over to her.
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question on OneNote. That is a very good question. Microsoft is continuously working on improving the speech-to-text models, making sure that the speech is transcribed accurately, and we can say with confidence that today it is transcribing all the conversation accurately. Of course, there is an exception. If you have a deaf accent, it may not recognize. For example, I have a deaf accent, so it does not recognize my conversation. But apart from me, yes, it is able to recognize everyone else's conversation.
I see. Interesting. So would you, if you were to assign a number to it, would you say 95%? In general, generally speaking, what kind of percentage are we looking at for the accuracy?
So I don't want to tell you any numbers without knowing it 100% myself. But I could tell you from my experiences that it is close to 90 to 95% accurate. Otherwise, I won't be able to follow meetings with this captaining that Microsoft provides. I attend all one-on-one meetings with my manager without any interpreter, and I am able to follow him via the live captaining.
I see. I see. Wow, that's incredible. I think it's interesting. The deaf community, myself included, our experience with automatic captioning, we have to give ourselves a filter and be able to screen out any of those incorrect translations. But looking at this now, it seems like it's a very one-way method of communication. For example, if someone was unable to speak. And so myself, I could be able to type and be able to have conversation happen that way. But I think with the deaf community as a whole, using sign language in order to communicate, eventually down the road, maybe we can have some type of sign translation, and maybe we'll get there one day. So if I could ask you, what is your outlook on that? What do you see happening with the future of sign translation? I know we're a long ways from that, and that requires a lot of technology. Just curious to get a quick comment from you before we have Sophie jump back on.
That is a very good question. So firstly, I want to let you know with the Microsoft Translator app, the deaf community has a way of typing if they are fluent in sign language. That is the first thing we've always made it were to make it inclusive for everyone. It doesn't require you to talk. The second thing, if you look 10 years back, live captioning was not even available. It was not even accurate. We never had any facility to access information. But now in 2020, captioning has improved a lot. It is very hard to get accurate transcript, accurate captioning. The same thing with sign language. Today, it is very hard to build technology that recognizes sign language. But trust that Microsoft is working very hard to collect a lot of data for sign language and come up with interesting process to recognize sign language and further down the road in the future build products that can include people who are fluent in sign language. We're getting there, so have patience.
Of course, of course. It's interesting looking at speech to text or text to speech. There has been so many years, decades of research involved. I'm really looking forward to what's coming down the road. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure the audience has some more questions. We'll make sure we hold some time at the end of that. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Sophie. Sophie, if you wouldn't mind bringing your video on, and we can go ahead and start with your presentation now. Thank you. Hi there, Sophie. We're glad you made it. We're going to go ahead and switch over to, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, we can get a view of your presentation. Thank you so much.
And Ashley, if you would like to swap roles, we can do that. Sophie speaking. Is everyone able to see my screen here? My first slide? Not seeing any responses. I want to make sure everyone can see my screen. This first slide here that says, let's talk about inclusive design. Not getting any responses, but, oh, okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Great. So I'm going to be talking about inclusive design. And Swetha, I thank you very much for talking about all the work that is being done at Microsoft to promote inclusive design. I'm going to provide a little bit of a different perspective. I mean, as you know, I graduated from Gallaudet, and I'm going to be talking about a deaf cultural and community perspective regarding inclusive design and technology and how it improves technology. And also different ways technologies are developed. I am a software engineer, and I believe that inclusivity and inclusive design should be a priority from the beginning of any new project. And I believe that any new product built ought to be accessible prior to shipping. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about inclusive design. And also, unfortunately, it's very easy to do inclusive design inappropriately and wrong. Now, Swetha has shown some excellent examples of inclusive design, but I'm going to show you one where we've seen these before, the so-called ASL gloves. I think some of you have probably seen examples of these in the media and such. Yes, we've all seen these before. So these so-called signing gloves come out from different areas, but they tend to follow the same kind of design. They have sensors on the fingers to recognize the movement of a person. And then those gloves, as a person is signing, they're supposed to recognize the movement and, as it were, translate into English. So they're called these ASL gloves. We've seen them in the media quite often. The University of Washington in Seattle actually had a project where some people designed signing gloves there. The problem with these is that communication is supposed to be a two-way channel. This doesn't work that well. I mean, even if they worked perfectly so that a hearing person could understand my signing, I, as a deaf person, do not have a means by which to receive information back from that hearing person. So the two-way channel is lost in communication. And also, I would call this a form of cultural appropriation, is not respecting ASL as a language. As we all know, American Sign Language uses three-dimensional space, the body, the face, etc. And this shows a completely wrong understanding of American Sign Language. So I would call this cultural appropriation. And again, for whom is this a benefit? It's, again, putting the onus on deaf people to do the communication. And it's also, I feel it as a kind of paternalistic. The point is, bias can show up in the design of technology, even if a person isn't realizing it. And again, this puts the onus on the deaf person to make communication happen. That seems to happen once again. That seems to happen again and again, that deaf people are being made to take the burden of communication. The intention ought to be equal, two-way street. So this is not inclusive design. So we want to talk about inclusive design and how that actually makes technology better. This is not an example of that concept. Moving on. Some common issues we often see in deaf-focused design that is, quote unquote, focused on deaf people is very hearing-oriented autist. We all know the term autism, basically things being designed with hearing people in mind as opposed to deaf people. Once again, putting the burden on deaf people for communication. So autism basically would be in technological design, autism basically means based on the ability to hear, and assumes that deaf people have to be fixed. And again, as we all know, we do not have to be fixed. We are just fine as we are. And again, cultural appropriation. What I wish to emphasize about inclusive design is the intention is to make technology better, right? When we talk about inclusive design, when we talk about deaf people, I mean, we have a very rich community, and there are over 466 million individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing globally, and 48 million in the United States. We have a rich culture, a rich language, and a rich heritage within the deaf culture and community. So people who are doing what they call inclusive design need to recognize that. This is a phrase that I often like to use: nothing about us without us. Perhaps, we've talked about iMeeting and talking about captioning and having accessibility. So we are all part of this process of designing technology to make it more inclusive. Now, I want to talk about a few awesome apps that I actually use every day. BIG, it's an iOS phone app. And I'm going to demonstrate it for you here on the screen. And obviously, being from Seattle, coffee town. And if I shake my phone like so, it flashes so that I can get someone's attention easily. This is an app I use almost every day to order coffee, or if I'm talking with a hearing friend who maybe doesn't know any sign language, we can do this. They would have the app on their phone as well, and we're able to chat with each other quite easily. Obviously, trying to use text messaging technology doesn't work so well because the font tends to be far too small. So this actually basically makes the shared burden, makes communication a shared equal burden, a two-way channel for real. And basically, you know, if we're in a situation where it's difficult to communicate, we can actually just use this back and forth with the flashing, making things bigger. It's an excellent app that really benefits everybody who uses it. And also, hearing people can speak into it, and Siri may actually be understand their speech and turn it into English text. And the thing about this, I'm speaking as a software engineer, and I would say that the code for this would be very easy to design and build. It's a simple implementation, but it really works. This is really, we all know that the sign attitude that shows on the heart, that shows the person who designed this app really knew what they were doing in terms of inclusive design and showing how that attitude. I think that's the thing that we want to be talking about, that sign attitude that we use. That's part of inclusive design, successful inclusive design. And of course, it's not just software engineering and inclusive design. There are numerous technologies that evidence inclusive design that people use every day. And I want to show you another example. Now, of course, inclusive design, as we say here, is based on the deep and firm belief that we are all equal. That means that as all equal, that means we all should have access. So here's something that's not software, but a simple tea kettle. It starts off at the color black. I put water in it. And when it becomes red, that means that the water's ready to make some tea. So this is, again, this is an awesome design. And yes, true, hearing people may be able to hear the water boiling, but this is a great visual cue for hearing or deaf. It doesn't matter. Everyone can use this. And it means that a hearing person doesn't have to depend on hearing the kettle boiling. They can be at a far distance and see the change in color. So deaf and hearing, everybody benefits from this kind of technology. And of course, we all know about alarm clocks that vibrate the bed and also will flash lights and things like that. It helps me quite a lot. Helps me to wake up. I'm a heavy sleeper, but I also have hearing roommates who have used them themselves to help them wake up more easily. So it's something that includes everybody. It can benefit all people. So as I say, it's hard to do, but it's also kind of simple, as I've just shown you. If one has a proper attitude and approach to the design of technology and includes all the perspectives of people who may be using this technology, that makes it inclusive and accessible. So yes, inclusive design obviously does make technology much better. So finally, if there are any questions that you have after this is over, please feel free to contact me. My information is there on this final slide. And Melissa's saying that we're probably going to have a few minutes for a Q&A, maybe 10 minutes or so. And we're going to look and see if maybe there's any questions in the chat. Hello, Sophie? As a deaf person in software engineering, I'm curious, are you tend to be the lone deaf person on your team, or are there other deaf people around you, making sure that people are... I'm just curious about your experience so far, whether you tend to be the lone deaf person on a team and how you push people to be, to incorporate inclusive design in software engineering. I mean, obviously it could be a big challenge to be the only deaf person in a room, but I'm curious about the experiences you've had. It's true, I tend to be the only deaf person in the room. I'm also the only woman on my team. I'm also the only person from another country. But so I provide, I believe, a very important perspective when I'm working with my colleagues. And so because I have this different perspective, that means that I can, it allows me to push people to make sure that, that engineering is done properly to be inclusive. And I also seek to empower people to do that work and also talk about, okay, when you do this kind of design, sometimes it doesn't work for me. And so I try to get that across to people that I'm working with. And yeah, even though I may be the only deaf person there, I try to step up. And I'm sure the people who know you, obviously, certainly they seek to support you. And I'm curious, in a big project, so what are some of the, can you talk a little about the process itself of working with people? And also, Sweta, I'm sorry, Sweta, were you saying something?
Yeah.
Oh, and we're going to switch interpreters.
Yeah. So I want to add on what Sophie said. I agree with her. I have been working in Microsoft for the past 7 years, and every year I am the only deaf person on the team. And yes, it is hard, but you know, Microsoft has an inclusive culture where the employees are interested in learning how to make us feel inclusive. So I often tell them this is how we should have meetings, this is how we should do presentation, this is how we need to communicate. It's all about communicating your approach and way of working so that everyone is on the same page. Yeah.
This is Sophie here. I really want to highlight the media's point about, you know, making sure I have a system, making sure that I speak up, making sure that I share my opinion, my perspective, explaining to those how they can help me. And I think through that process, people are willing to become allies. I meet a lot of people who are hearing who don't understand the culture, but are willing to learn, willing to stand by my side, willing to become an ally. And that's been a really great experience for me here at Microsoft. And you see more and more through things like these that awareness is getting out of there. Awareness is getting out there. We're able to speak to other deaf members and be able to get their opinions and perspectives on this together as a whole. Another thing that I've seen with accessibility as it relates to Microsoft, it seems Microsoft is really committed to inclusivity and accessibility. I've seen that they've made they have trainings, they have projects, and it seems that it extends all the way up to the CEO level. There's really this top-bottom perspective of accessibility and making sure there is inclusivity throughout Microsoft. And so just curious about your work and what that looks like at a micro level is really, really interesting compared to the view of accessibility on a macro level. And it seems that Microsoft is kind of unmatched compared to other tech companies as far as wanting to make sure that they're inclusive and focusing on the quality of a product, focusing on the individual contributors within the project. It really stands out compared to other business models that I've seen. I'd like to go here to the chat and see if we have any questions. Oh, I do see that we do have one question here. I must have overlooked that. One moment. I see. It looks like there's a question from Jason Lamberton asking, I'm curious, Swetha and Sophie, how did you see the question in the chat? I'm going to go ahead and sign the question for the audience who's unable to access the chat. I'm curious for you two, how close are you all to being able to, as far as using a smartphone, do you find yourself being able to use the smartphone as far as recognizing sign? I want to make sure I'm understanding this question clearly. Also, looking at the depth or the distance from the screen, what kind of technology is being put in place or worked on to help as far as being able to sign into a smartphone? This is Sophie here. Well, one answer I can tell you are gloves are not the answer. And so we have research within NLP, the National Language Process. It's a branch of deep learning. And so my grad school research focused on that area specifically. And so what we're doing now is video classification. And with video classification, we'll go ahead and record different signs, feed it into a machine, start that machine learning to where the signs are recognized. Now, speaking of static signs such as love or I love you or finger spelling A, B, not J. J has motion involved in that sign production, but looking at P's, Q's, more static signs, we're able to recognize that within a single frame. It's a 98% accuracy rate for recognizing that type of sign. As long as you have good video quality, we're able to pick up those signs. As soon as you get movement into a sign, the recognition becomes very difficult. If you were to say, I want to order a pizza, machine has a very hard time distinguishing the differences between the signs because there's such a constant motion involved. Pizza and order are not single frame captures. And so you have order, which starts at your mouth, ends at the bottom of the frame, and you're not able to capture that within a single frame. And on top of that, you have people who have different sign production who will start and end in different places. So it really complicates that process. We have also struggles with a person walking, being able to recognize that sign. That's another thing that has come up as being very difficult. And so are we close? I don't see that. It's definitely going to take more time. I think the key thing that we have to remember here is you can compare it to the auto driving car, right? What they have as far as the field of as far as technology around self-driving cars relates to the same type of technology we're using to research sign language. And that's my understanding. Great. Relating back to the question of what Jason presented in the chat, you have what you just mentioned around motion and single frame. I'm curious, how does that relate to gestures? If we were to set up a specific gesture in order to provide a commanding I'm sorry, if you, are you able to feed the machine specific gestures so that way there is recognition from the computer, at least at a fundamental level, rather than any type of advanced sign language? This is Sophie. So do you mean we have a sign being produced and then the computer will be able to relay that? And this is the moderator. Well, simple gestures, open, next, close. I don't know if there's some kind of collective agreement as far as basic signs that are able to be recognized. I guess it's more of an open-ended question than anything really specific. This is Sophie. I'm really hoping that we don't go to that route, because at the end of that route, the communication burden is still being placed on the deaf person. And so I think it would be very difficult in order to be able to have a fluent conversation. And so I'd hope that we wouldn't shift that focus in that direction. And this is the moderator. So we then have to wait for the machines to catch up to us, then, is what you're saying, rather than us kind of lower our standards in order to be able to help technology. And this is Sophie. Yes, we have to be very, very careful with what we do as far as building products within technology. Absolutely. Oh, I realized looking at the time here, this really has gone by so fast. These presentations were so fascinating. Thank you again, both of you, for your time. I want to make sure that we're able to have the ASL and AI competition explained. So let me bring my other speaker back and we'll make sure to wrap this up. Thank you. Thank you again, Sophie and Swetha. Thank you so much. So it's important for not only the deaf community, but the hearing community to be able to work together to make these fundamental changes. I really appreciate Microsoft being involved and the attitude that goes along with it. Gallaudet certainly sees the valuable contributions Microsoft is making. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to go ahead and summarize in short. We have one more presenter. I want to again thank you everyone for attending today. This has been really fascinating work around inclusive design. I would like now to have a discussion and show what Microsoft is doing within the ASL AI competition. We are approaching a deadline at the end of the month. And as previously mentioned by Sophie and Swetha, we want to know what can we bring to engineer teams to make sure that designs are inclusive and make sure that we're changing the experience for everyone going forward. This is the partnership that Microsoft and Gallaudet are working together this semester. We want deaf individuals to imagine what AI can do for their daily lives, how we can make improvements, how can we assist Microsoft engineers, developers to think about what inclusive design looks like. For example, the ASL gloves is a classic example of how we can step in and be able to better express what we want, and make sure that Microsoft gets what they need from us. So I hope that you all, educators, staff, students, everyone here at Gallaudet really gets involved in this competition, and there is a prize involved as well. It looks like we have registration open until November 30th. I encourage you all to sign up. Make sure we're not waiting till the last minute to submit. We've got a team of 3 people who will make sure to follow up with you on your proposals, make sure that we can get some more ideas out there, get some really creative proposals to Microsoft. That is asl.ai@gallaudet.edu. That's the email contact that you can submit your ideas. This competition is open to students at Gallaudet, currently enrolled students. I hope to see you all participate. Thank you so much for your time. Be safe and be well out there. Thank you.